Very good morning to you if you are in the Caribbean or US, and obviously good afternoon if you are in European region, or actually good evening to you if you are based in Asia. My name is Dennis, and today we're joined by Rogelio Caceres for another IMC streaming session, IMC Crossing Border broadcast. In case you haven't seen any of other previous broadcasts, obviously you're more than welcome to visit our YouTube channel, and more than encouraged to hit like and share, of course. Don't forget that today you're obviously more than welcome and encouraged to ask any questions you may wish to myself and to Rogelio about our today's session. So today we'll be discussing something actually very, very interesting and very new to our industry. It's basically how the ultra high net worth individuals and high net worth individuals are increasingly considering alternative residence and citizenship. Those kind of individuals obviously are based in North American region, and they are exploring what's there in the market. And we are joined, as I have said, by Rogelio Caceres, who is the founder and the CEO of RCG Global, which is actually the first ever, as far as we know, firm that is based on US and is focused on the outbound immigration from US, which is obviously a newly emerged trend. Before we start with some very exciting lined up questions, I'm going to launch a quick poll just to see where our attendees are. So if you can just tune in for a quick answer so we can have a look. Where are you calling from? Where you're tuning in from, and so your response obviously will be much appreciated on this, so we can see where are we. So we have a couple of seconds on that. In the meantime, just to give you a bit of an update, we will cover a couple of very interesting questions about the US market. We will obviously discuss why an investment migration firm focused on the outbound immigration from the US have came into business at all, and what was the rationale behind it. And some obviously other industry-related questions which will be discussed. So we have basically mostly nearly everyone has voted for the poll. So let's have a look at Rogelio. You'll be surprised that most of the attendees are from European Union and African region as well. And then we have almost 30% of our colleagues joining us from US and from Americas. So that's actually quite interesting. So let me start by obviously giving a word to Rogelio, who can introduce himself, who explain what the global RCG is all about and why have this business came up in there at all. Because obviously US up until recently was a market to where people wanted to migrate to, not actually from. So maybe you can give us a bit of a brief about yourself, about the firm, and about the rationale behind the business.
Well, thanks, Dennis. Always good to see you, and thanks for having us here today on my birthday. So
that's great, of course. Yes.
Be kind with your questions, I'm sure. No, but I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Residency and Citizenship Group. We're a investment firm based here in Miami, Florida, and we help international investors, primarily Americans, whether they're entrepreneurs, professionals, or recent retirees, explore the world and gain access and opportunities to either travel more freely or settle either temporarily or permanently in attractive destinations around the world. We launched the program, the company, in September of last year. Spent a lot of time business building it, and now we're officially ready to launch our first product, which is called Citizens of Bitcoin. It provides customized solutions in residency and citizenship for cryptocurrency enthusiasts, digital nomads, etc. Based here in sunny Miami, Florida, with offices in Newport Beach, in San Francisco, and in Montreal. And very excited about the opportunity. There's over 19 million millionaire households in the United States. That number is going up. And yet the awareness level of this wonderful asset class is not as high as it could be. So we're the first of, I'm sure, many others to really focus and help develop this market. It will take a village, like Senator Clinton used to say. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm a first-generation immigrant. My parents met here as college students. My father's from El Salvador, when I was in the Dominican Republic. And I grew up here, actually grew up in Central America, moved here for college, business school. Prior to Global RCG, was a co-founder and the chief commercial officer at a firm called LCR Capital Partners, based in Westport, Connecticut. It's a leading company focused on the EB-5 investment visa, which attracts qualified foreign investors into the US. And so in that experience of growing that company and going to markets that had very low awareness of the asset class, countries like Brazil, India, and South Africa in particular, I got a good knack at and really enjoyed being at the vanguard of what I think is a tremendous, access enhancing, opportunity enhancing investment class. And so why not do it in reverse? As a result of the pandemic, certainly a lot of folks are considering it. So happy to be here to answer questions and I guess share some thoughts on our early experiences.
Absolutely, absolutely. But well, I mean, going into like why RCG has been founded at all. Why do you think? What makes Americans interested in the investment migration industry and products? Because that's really a newly emerged trend, isn't it?
It is. And, it's, I would say probably 60 to 70% of it has to do with the pandemic and how it really has shifted the sense of confidence that any person, whether you're American or not, in why only have one residency or one passport. That's a risk not worth taking. And Americans, one of the strongest passports historically speaking, never really saw the need to diversify that residency risk, if you will, and therefore, never really considered it. But almost as equally important is the lack of focus and energy that is really required to activate any country that doesn't have a pre-existing awareness level of investment migration. We saw that firsthand in wonderful countries like India, for example. You think the second most popular country in the world would have known everything you were to know about the EB-5 investment visa program, considering how tremendously well Indians have done here in the US with the green card program. Suffice to say, our vice president is of Indian origin. Yet when we went there in 2015, we were shocked to hear that people really had never heard that you could actually invest in a country like the US and get a green card in return and your money back if you make a good investment. And so that aha moment, which really started in Brazil, I think convinced us that, hey, if there's an opportune time to come to the US or come to our own neighbors and say, this is something you should consider to maximize, enhance your life and hedge your risks, it would be now. So the point of that is, until there is, active efforts locally to really activate the market, it'll take a little bit longer than it should. And, India is a great example of that now. India is the #1 or #2 country in EB-5. That's because my former firm and many others have really spent the shoe leather, like they say, to activate and speak to folks and gain that confidence. So it's a combination of the two. From what we understand, and our peers, I'm sure will confirm, Americans get it, right? They get the benefits. It's not a difficult value proposition at all to understand. People like options, they like access, they don't want to be limited. There's a distrust, if you will, of centralized governments and institutions in general, and de-risking yourself from one jurisdiction into multiple just makes all the sense in the world. So it's just a matter of time, I think, before the US really rises up the leader tables, if you will, and folks start to not just invest in additional citizenship, but additional residencies, right? It's just to really enhance their lifestyles and preserve wealth. So we're really bullish.
Just if you can add on this by clarifying, maybe just from me in this case, do you think that the political landscape had affected the demand at all?
The political landscape last year certainly had a lot to do with, I'm sure, the interest being piqued. I mean, I should not gloss over what happened here in our country in January of this year. Who would have thought, right? Something out of a Latin America revolution, right? That I'm very familiar with in my days in Central America. But But yeah, that just happened. Literally, not like years ago or, the 19th century or something. It literally just happened. And it could happen again. And what is the risk involved in letting that happen again? Why not protect that risk? And if something like that were to happen again, a family, an individual has the absolute right to move or reside or leave to the country of their choice. And so not so much as a downside protection for civil unrest and security concerns, but really to enhance life. Working from home means always working, is what I found. I'm not sure if you would agree, but once you have no other place to go, it's just all you do is this. And if you're going to do that, right, if we have really crossed the Rubicon and the days of huge office towers and less of commuting are over, then switch it up. I have some place in the Caribbean, nice place in Malta where you reside. I'm sure you'll speak highly of Malta. I've never been. I look forward to going. Australia, New Zealand. There's just so many great options there to do for a real estate investment, a donation, a startup investment. So many different ways to participate and really have a better outcome over the course of many years. So I think we're in the best industry that I can think of, both for Americans, but for Indians, for Russians, for people from the UK, from anywhere. I think it's
absolutely any market can be any market, but that's spot on. And just to see what our audience thinks about it, we would like to ask you a quick question in the form of a poll. Particularly, we're obviously would be keen to hear if you ever had any inquiries from US, and what would be the percentage of your inquiries, of course, that came from US about obviously the industry related products. So that's indeed a good question to ask, I believe. Although we would expect that many would say no, zero, but I'm pretty sure that someone did work in the past with US residents and citizens. But it seems like, Rogelio, if I may share with you and everyone, of course, the results, it seems that our audience had 50% of the audience has said that no or barely any clients had came from US. And what is surprising is that quarter of our audience had said that up to 50% actually of their clientele is coming from US. That's, I believe, quite an interesting figure to consider.
Yeah.
And obviously that takes me to another question that I would obviously ask you, Rogelio, as an expert who is based in the US. What are the main motivators that force Americans to consider the investment migration and that kind of class assets?
Well, the reasons vary. I think one of the things we're realizing as we speak to the marketplace and really start this process with our fellow cryptocurrency enthusiasts here in Miami and elsewhere is it's really kind of made several different groups of folks that we've identified as likely to consider this. Retirees, certainly, I think at the top of that list. Bloomberg Wealth had an article recently, I think last week, speaking about the massive shift in early retirements by the affluent in the United States. This concept of life is too short, or YOLO, you only live once, right? For a year in the pandemic, many corporate executives or business owners said, why do I need to work another 10 years? Yeah, maybe I'm not CEO, but I've had a great life. It's time to enjoy it. And people in their 50s or late 40s are considering retirement and retiring versus waiting till their 60s. That, I think, presents a tremendous opportunity, given the numbers, to introduce this opportunity to have a second home or retire or, do a tour, right? Australia and Greece, phenomenal opportunity there, or Spain. And so we see that as an opportunity. We haven't seen the data to support early affluent or early retirees choosing this, but in our conversations with our peers, certainly that is becoming more and more relevant. I think we read IMI daily religiously, as we all do, and I think Americans have been in the top 5 in the Portugal golden visa for the last 9 of the last 10 months or some statistic like that. So that's encouraging. So one is that category of folks saying, hey, America's great, but why not explore a different area of the world? The one that we're least familiar with is taxation, right? It's no surprise that President Biden has announced some new taxation policies that target the very wealthy in the country. That I'm sure is causing a lot of folks to consider this. What I always say though is that's a very aggressive solution for a potential problem. Aggressive meaning renouncing American citizenship. That's something that we personally don't think is that wise. And only in the extraordinary cases, something you can't undo. Although there's several reasons for it, but we don't lead with that. It's something that I think perhaps is done more in the industry than I think it should be. Renouncing citizenship, especially in American citizenship, I think is not advised. But that's the ultimate, right? From renouncing citizenship all the way to retiring and everything in between. I mentioned before, working in alternative jurisdictions. Health security is another one, right? Islands like New Zealand and Australia, who have really exhibited tremendous track records with regards to its COVID response. If there were to be, God forbid, another type of pandemic or a resurgence of a different strain, folks having something prepared to work from or live from, this really makes a lot of sense. So those are some of the things that I think we're looking at.
So absolutely, I mean the pandemic and the political landscape, the taxation probably had spiked over the last say year, and that leads me to a poll question that I want to ask our audience. Obviously, yes, now there are a few factors that you just mentioned, that stimulated the interest for the industry, but how can that be compared to what was there 3 years ago? So I was wondering, those of our audience, those of these who have said that part of their inquiries are coming from US. What was the same amount? Was it the same in terms of inquiries a few years back? That I mean, I'm just actually it's very interesting for myself as well because no one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rogelio, but obviously, I guess 3 years ago, no one would ever imagine that people would want to go out of the US, would it?
Yeah, no, it's certainly a very new, relatively new trend. I was quite pleasantly surprised that in the prior question, current activity, was it 25% of the attendees?
Yeah. It was 25% of attendees said that between 25 to 50% of their inquiries are actually coming from the US.
That's pretty substantial to have any country.
Well, certainly yes. It's probably some of those. So what we can see is that obviously something has changed, but not much. So apparently US was a big market even in the past. That's fascinating information, I guess. So, and then that leads me to another important question, Rogelio. It's quite important. I mean, you've mentioned that you founded a network of cryptocurrency entrepreneurs. You are obviously in touch with various individuals who have high net worth. What are they looking for? I mean, that would be very educational for our audience, I believe, for the future business operations if they ever decide to step up into that jurisdiction. What are the Americans looking for? What is their what is the type of the products they're opting for and they're interested in, like precisely? I mean,
well, I would say is, they want predictability. They want programs that are as structured and transparent as possible, where the outcome is predetermined, meaning that the rules of engagement, the rules of adjudication are clearly known and not subject to, arbitrary considerations by the adjudicators in other countries. They certainly like speed. Americans, right, always a mile a minute, never resting, and programs that can provide a response, yay or nay, in a relatively short time frame, I think is pleasant. Coming from the EB5 industry, we kill for the types of adjudication periods that the folks in Europe and here in the Caribbean have, right? 3, 6 months, 9 months, even a year compared to what our clients in EB5 are used to, right? Under the former administration, those numbers really grew. So timeliness, transparency in terms of adjudication. I think there's a lot of room for innovation in this entire asset class. Folks that are able to create investment funds, private equity funds, debt equity funds, debt funds that can lend capital instead of just to multiple projects, instead of just putting all your eggs in one proverbial basket. So as the industry begins to secure alternatives that are diversified and transparent and regulated, that's only the best. I know that, for example, in Australia, Moelis is a great firm. Moelis Australia, I think they just changed their name. They have a phenomenal fund. So does others in that country. But the Significant Investor Visa Program is a fund-based program which provides you access to multiple asset classes, public and private, in Australia. Dear friend of mine, Ashish Sharaf, in doing the same thing right now in Greece with his firm Aretha Capital Partners, and there's others that I'm sure are doing that around the world. So I think you know, as this investment, this asset class gets more and more professionalized and more innovation occurs, structures that are really investor friendly, transparent, adjudicated quickly, I think will be the ones that are preferred by.
Okay. All right, that's actually quite fascinating. And I mean, indeed, I mean, I would presume many of the likes of the investor would look for the same, but you know, jurisdiction-specific thoughts on this are quite interesting as well. Now, I have a very interesting poll to launch to our audience, and for those of you who have responded that 0 of their clients are from the US, I would ask to probably guess. The poll is about which programs you think are most popular amongst the US citizens and residents. And I would appreciate, of course, if you just say, even if you don't know, I would ask you to guess what are the most popular programs. Rogelio, in the meantime, I will ask you to prepare a response from your client that you've spoken to. Of course, that would be, I mean, you know, hand-on experience would be, of course, interesting as well.
You know, it's funny. Our most popular programs aren't on this list.
All right, then you have to pick 1 or 2 at least.
Yeah, the Spain Golden Visa for us is, we think, a tremendous program. It's a program. Australia is there, so yes, I would say Australia is very, very popular.
Okay. Now, I'm seeing the results while you don't, so but you'll be surprised with what people think. So I'm just leaving it off for a few seconds so for more people can respond. But all right, let's close it off for now. So let me share the results with you, and you'll be surprised according to what you just said. So
wow, wow, look at that. That's amazing. That's worth a screenshot.
Oh well, we'll have to do one. But yes, you see, I mean, it's either that people have their clients inquiring about Portugal and the Caribbean, which is pretty much expected because of the facility. But what's your experience on this? What can you comment about that?
You know, I'm surprised even that Australia and New Zealand are not present, and I'm really surprised and impressed that Portugal. I mean, what a phenomenal job that government has done to really promote that program, right? There's great programs that are golden visa programs, like Greece, for example, I think is a tremendous program. Spain, I just mentioned, tremendous. Yet, when you compare to Portugal and their awareness level, I don't think just in the United States, but just overall, they really have done a tremendous job. So kudos to our Portuguese friends. They have a 50% market share with how many programs are out there that are active? What, 30?
Well, I mean, if you think Caribbean, it's a combination of 5 alone.
So that's what I would say about that question.
Someone from the audience, particularly Mr. Eric Major, had asked us a question if we should add to this list countries like Malta, Montenegro, Ireland, UK, and other European jurisdictions. What do you think about that, Rogelio? How that is relevant and how is that interesting for the American clients of yours?
Yeah, I think this is not the best example of a polling question, because it leaves, like Eric mentioned, many countries that are quite popular and are not on the list. So
yeah, I should apologize for that because the system only allows 5 options.
Yeah. Oh, well, fair enough. I'm just saying that
But
Malta,
like if you cover Malta, Montenegro, Ireland, UK, and other European jurisdictions, what do you think? How is that interesting for the audience? For the clients of yours?
you know, I don't see personally a lot of interest in Malta, especially with the stronger residency requirements. I think Montenegro is a fantastic program. I think Ireland, Golden Visa, tremendous value proposition. Even if you're of Irish descent, still the Irish investment program gets you there faster, given current delays, than through ancestry. So it's a big world out there. There's a lot of opportunities. We tend to take not so much a product-based approach, but a more consultative approach as we meet with investors and really start that process. What their interests are, objectives, timeline, and frankly, there's more than one solution. Right? This isn't one of those things where, okay, I already have one home, I'll get one more home and I'm good. There is, just like any other benefit or asset, car, etc. I'm not comparing the two, but there's certainly opportunities to really maximize your allocation of investments across multiple different jurisdictions. And that doesn't only apply for the ultra high net worth. There's tremendous options out there that a lot of folks should take advantage of that don't involve significant amounts of capital. So I think the approach of selecting more than one might make a lot of sense for many folks, and that's what we intend to do.
Okay, and while you were speaking, Mr. Lincoln, David Lincoln, had asked us a very good question, and I hope you will be able to clarify that, because obviously we have seen from the poll that many of industry players think that Portugal is, and based on their experience, Portugal is one of the most demanded, let's say, program across the US citizens and residents. And David is asking, what do you think attracts US clients to Portugal? What are the factors that attract clients from US to Portugal?
You know, well, it's a beautiful country. I personally have not been. I'll confess, I tend to go past Portugal and directly to Spain, right, where my roots are. And I have I'm not afraid to say it, a preference for Spain. Having never been to Portugal, maybe that's not a very informed preference. But I think it goes back to people buy what they know, and the awareness level of Portugal is high. What I found, and my colleague Tate Warswick has confirmed in his conversations with the marketplace, is how, I don't know if this applies to other jurisdictions, but certainly Americans, once the first American in his community or her community does something, they tend to tell their friends, and they just tend to follow that. And the initial experiences of many Americans in Portugal has been so positive that kind of creates a self-reinforcing mechanism. So having been first to market, or certainly the most active in creating that awareness initially, Portugal, Golden Visa, they're reaping the benefits, and that's feeding on itself. As those initial Americans go, they tell their friends, and Americans don't tend to, in general, delay their decision making for many months if they like it and they can afford it. And certainly if they have a friend that has done it before, they tend to move forward. So I think that positive virtuous circle is affecting the success of it. But that doesn't mean that there's a strong allegiance in this country for Portugal, or some pre-existing deep awareness or affinity, if you would say. If anything, I think the awareness of Italy or Spain or France is probably higher. Yet many folks don't know that Spain and Italy have very attractive ways to obtain residency. So this is a matter of time before Global RCG, Global Residency Citizenship Group, and others, as we start to speak to our fellow peers and others from based in Montreal and other countries, do the same. I'm sure that 50% that we saw will probably go down over time. Let's hope.
Okay. And the last question I have from my end, that obviously we now have heard from an expert, and we probably many of us have seen that US is a market that is growing and as an investment migration market. So we are obviously keen to hear if our audience have any personnel, any staff in US, or if you're planning to have any staff in US at all, because obviously in light of what Rogelio had shared with us, in light of what's been going on in the past couple of months and in the past year, maybe any strategies have been changed. I mean, we wonder what are your thoughts, of course, on this. So
let's see.
Let's see. Yes. Again, Rogelio will be surprised. Well, probably not. I should say probably not, because you would expect that most of our audience does not have any staff in US, because obviously it's a different market. But what is surprising that no one said they will.
Yeah, but I'm really surprised by the 43% of the attendees say that they have permanent staff employees physically here. Yes. That's great. That shows that makes sense, right? This is a market on the upswing. People buy from people they know, people that they can see, look and feel, etc., and visit. So that number is encouraging. It shows that folks are making the investments required to really catalyze.
Well, look, Rogelio, I have one more question to ask from my side. I mean, I'm just wondering what are your thoughts on this. What would be your say on like how you think our industry players, our industry peers have to tackle the market when it comes to dealing with US clients? Any like suggestions, any comments you may want? How can you share your expertise in this regard?
You cut off there. However, can you please repeat the question? Sorry.
Sorry?
Can you please repeat the question? I didn't catch that, Dennis. I'm sorry.
What I said, like, do you have any comments or suggestions to our audience as to how they should tackle the US clients, or how should they deal with them? Any particular suggestive comments you can provide in this regard?
Yeah, it takes a village, hire staff. I'm not a proponent, especially post-pandemic, of the traditional go-to-market strategy of, tons of offices, and, we are in a virtual world, and that will not switch back. But the investments in time and energy to set up operations here, I think, will pay dividends for any company that does that. We're not aware of any other company having an office here, and maybe that's changed. I don't check our industry peers' websites on a constant basis, but that is, I think, from our experience at my former firm, LCR Capital, the key ingredient to success in any local market is local understanding from local individuals that have the connectivity and the understanding of the cultural and economic nuances to connect the dots and increase market share. So I would recommend that if you haven't already, it seems like 43% already have, so that's I'm sure going to change over time, and the number will grow.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your attendance, for your time today, Rogelio. Really thank you for your expertise, because we're running a bit out of time. There are a couple of more questions came in place, which I will forward to you individually, of course, so you can assist and respond. In the meantime, just as a final question, which I'll obviously be keen to mention to our audience, is that the IMC is obviously, as some of you know, is pleased to announce the fact that we are holding an investment migration forum this year virtually, and the lineup of speakers is, of course, beautiful, with almost 50 speakers lined up. I'm pretty sure Rogelio will be part of that lineup as well. And we would, of course, encourage everyone to be part of that gathering of industry professionals. So on that note, I'm obviously would like to wish everyone a very good morning, very good afternoon, or very good evening. And we are going to come back next month for another IMC streaming session. So please tune in for that. And well, very nice day, good morning, or very nice afternoon, or very nice evening for you, for everyone. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Stay safe.